Murfreesboro and Rutherford County are so rich in their respective histories, with many women who've had integral roles in creating our community's sense of place. The Rutherford Arts Alliance is proud to partner with Murfreesboro City TV to showcase a number of these women as a part of our Leading Ladies of Rutherford County History project. From murals to our community-involved play, A Party of 12 by Mary Noailles, we're proud to honor these diverse women of our past who inspire us as we give them a voice in today's world. Let's find out more about one of these leading ladies.
Murfreesboro native Mary Noailles Murfree found her fame in the literary world. Born in 1850, Murfree penned a number of novels and short stories under the pen name Charles Egbert Craddock. She's also the great-granddaughter of the city's namesake, Colonel Hardy Murfree. We find out more about Murfree's life from descendant Jenna Murfree DeJean.
Jenna, I'm so glad that we are getting together to talk about one of Murfreesboro's famous women, writers, and your relative. And we're here in your mom and dad's home with a lot of her memorabilia right around us. So let's talk about Mary, and her middle name is pronounced
Noailles. That's how the family has pronounced it.
Noailles, and it is spelled Noailles. So that's been a point of controversy over the years, I think. So we want to make sure we get that straight. And her sister also had that name, Fanny.
Yes.
And her full name was?
Fanny Noailles Murfree.
So interesting. Yeah. Now tell us about where they lived.
So they were both born in Murfreesboro, and their family had an estate over there, I guess you would say near the Boys and Girls Club, that area off of Memorial and Medical Center Parkway. So that was their family homestead. And they lived in that house until Mary was about 11 years old. And during the Civil War, it was used as a hospital, and unfortunately the house did not withstand the Civil War. So that's when their family moved.
And that's interesting that they both had that same name in their names. Interesting. So tell us what some of your family ideas and stories are about Mary Noailles.
So to be able to have an influential woman that, you know, we can look back, Hardy Murfree, whom the town is named for, many people recognize him and his history, but to have a female in the family that really made an impact in literacy and in history in her time period, you know, it's neat as a young, you know, female growing up, and to hear those stories was very inspirational, and especially in a time period. As many know, you know, she wrote under the surname of a man because women were not recognized as being able to be that forward thinking and be a publicist, you know. And so I think me growing up, I was the only girl in our family out of all of our cousins, and I just know that was very important to me to have that, you know, family member that I could use as an inspiration.
And that male name that she used, Charles Craddock, we have a study club in the Murfreesboro area that is recognizing her through their club activities and so forth, the Craddock Study Club. So Jenna, one other question that's kind of intriguing is with the French term that we've chatted about in her name, the Noailles, and the fact that she went to a finishing school in Philadelphia that was French and studied French. And then here you are 7 generations later with a French, your married name has a French sound to it. What's that connection, do you think?
I don't know what the connection is. I know that Noailles, they were based in South France, and when the French Revolution happened, their family, they were nobility, and so they moved to England. And then Rachel Noailles is kind of our connection. She moved to North Carolina and married, I think it was Matthias Brickle Murfree, and so that's how that Noailles name comes into our family.
Okay.
But many family members I was discussing with my dad kind of carried that Noailles name. And so if you look back and think of why did they do that, we just don't have a lot of history about it, but it would be interesting to know. Obviously, it was a very important name to the family. The fact there are so many of their children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren that carried on that name.
Mm-hmm. And the other name connection that I've got interest in from your family standpoint is your maiden name of Murfree, M-U-R-F-R-E-E, is used in the name of our community, Murfreesboro. So tell me about that connection.
So Colonel Hardy Murfree was a colonel in the Revolutionary War under George Washington, and he was very instrumental in the Battle of Stony Point. And back then, our country, obviously, we were getting started and didn't have a lot of money to award to, our war heroes. And so they would give land grants. And so he actually lived in Murfreesboro, North Carolina. And 5 of his children moved here to Murfreesboro, Tennessee, to start their, settle and start their family, because a big portion of Murfreesboro, as well as Franklin, was part of that original land grant. So there's many neat places. Oakland's Mansion was one Sally Murfree land, and she married Dr. Manny. And Uxor Hill, which now we know as Bellwood, that was another family homestead here. And then Grantlands, which Mary and her sister Fanny grew up. And then there's one on Main Street as well, the yellow, I think it's a Patterson House is what they call it now, but across from Junior's Foodland. So a few are still standing, but a neat story that the children came and settled here.
An interesting fact about your family has to do with the intrigue of Beersheba and Mont Eagle and the whole mountain life thing, which Mary used as a theme of many of her books. So particularly in the Beersheba area, and now your family for several generations have been had summer homes in Mont Eagle area. So that's an interesting family
connection.
Dynamic.
Right,
yes.
Right. So back in Mary's time, and even for generations after, we did not have air conditioning. And as we all know, Murfreesboro can get pretty hot in the summer, so they would escape and go to Beersheba, where sometimes it's 20 degrees cooler there, and go in the summertime. So that's something that a lot of people in the South and in our area would escape to the mountains. And it's just it's a beautiful place if people haven't gotten a chance to go and see the University of the South and Beersheba and Mont Eagle, that area. So we kind of continued that tradition with my grandparents would go as children, and my dad would go, and we would stay at the Mont Eagle Sunday School Assembly, which is a neat little place that it's faith-based, but they have youth staff, and you got to go with your grandchildren, and but we've just kind of continued that tradition.
The Murfree family has been able to preserve many of Mary Noailles' literary works, including books with her signature inside.
Jenna, I'm amazed at how much material you have of hers. And I mean, she wrote a lot of books, didn't she?
She did. She did. She was most famous for In the Tennessee Mountains, this one, which has that great dialect that she was so famous for.
Wow.
So,
and this from her time in Beersheba, right?
Okay, that's where she got pulled in her inspiration. So it's neat to look in and see her.
And her signature. Oh, and it has her autograph in here too. May of 1885. Wow. Isn't that fun?
And it's so neat to see some of these clippings that were mailed from different publishers. So this one was from the Times in Denver, and going over some of her stories. And so I just think it's so neat to pair this with the book and read a little bit about what different people have critiqued and said about her book. So that's so neat. We were kind of putting those together earlier.
And this is one of the ones in the Tennessee mountains.
Yeah, this is from the Boston Journal in 1833, which is so neat. And it says, the boys of the Tennessee Mountain are portrayed in Charles Egbert Craddock's appreciative manner in Down in the Ravine, a story first published in a Wide Awake and now in a convenient form by Huffington Mifflin and Company, which the Mifflins, I wonder if there's a connection.
Well, probably.
Probably. Mm-hmm. So these are so neat to read and just get a little snippet of.
And tell me about these.
So I'm assuming that these are her original manuscripts. So you can see how, obviously back then you would have to handwrite and then do a typewriter of some sort, but it looks like they went through and hand edited
there,
mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So the different pages, so it's so neat to see just the process of what writers had to go through. And, it's not just that the story comes out. There's so much involved in getting a book published and going back and forth with the different edits. And we just don't, as readers, I feel like, appreciate everything that goes into that finished product.
And the other factor, and of course we've talked about her writing under the Charles Egbert Craddock male-sounding name, and so for a good bit of time, her work with her publisher, it was all in written form,
right?
Not telephone calls,
right,
or texts,
right?
And they really thought she was a man, and
right.
Probably one of the reasons she got published so easily.
Right, right.
And then how did they learn? There's a story, I think, there.
There is. So she actually had to travel and go meet in person. And so when she walked into the meeting, that's when it was unveiled that she was actually a female. So as some of the reviews that we were looking at had in parentheses, Miss Murfree. So it was neat to see that kind of transition from her being, keeping that surname, because that's how she, created a following and people knew who she was, but then also bringing in that she was a female and making that connection. I thought that was very, very progressive in that time period.
And being a single female, she traveled to New York with her father and her sister, right? Mm-hmm. Interesting. Mm-hmm. Interesting on that.
And one of the stories that we had talked about that I love so much and was when President Roosevelt came through Murfreesboro, Tennessee, and he was on the train and he yelled out, what was it? Where's Craddock? That's who I want to see.
Right.
And just how neat that a president, a very prominent president of our United States, came through our town, and that was something that he remembered and wanted to meet her. So right. I thought that was a neat story.
Well, it showed how popular she was at the time on depicting the people from the mountains, particularly. And I think I understand that most of her collection of papers and so forth are at Emory University Library now. Let's talk about the Family Bible, which is sort of the collection of, in olden days, that was the family history was kept in the Bible. Most Bibles came with blank pages for births, deaths, marriages, that type of thing. And I see you have a very, one with lots of memories in it there.
I did. So this is Fanny D. Hancock and Dr. James Brickell Murfree, which he was the mayor of Murfreesboro for a period of time. And so this is starts out with them, but it goes into many different family members, and their births are handwritten here, and then in the beginning of the Bible talks about marriages, and so it's just neat to kind of look back and see the importance of, this is how they kept up with all of those dates and events. And a lot of times when you're looking back and researching about different, people in your family, you'll read that this was found from a family Bible. And so this is something that was, in history, kind of the markers of when people passed away and were born. So.
And passed down from one generation to the next to keep that history.
I think one thing that is neat to recognize, and one reason why she probably was so successful and committed so much of her life to writing, when she was young, when she was 4, she caught a fever. And so that I know is depicted in the play that y'all are doing, of that she, had a disability, and so she wasn't able to walk as well and had a cane, and so that'll be depicted in the play. But as you can see in the portrait behind us, this is Mary Noailles and her sister Fanny, and she is seated. And that was one thing that was always communicated to me, was that's why she was seated in that portrait.
And Mary's the older child in the portrait there with the long curls and so forth. And I think you mentioned another portrait that we're going to talk about too. Is that the sister's portrait?
So we actually have her parents' portrait. So William Law Murfree and Fanny Priscilla Dickinson Murfree. So their portrait was also painted by William Cooper, and is in Mom and Dad's front hallway. And so it's neat to have the parents and then the daughters kind of in the same space.
So Fanny then was named after her mother. Sister Fanny. That's why I was thinking okay, interesting. But she wasn't the first daughter.
Right.
Oldest daughter. Kind of interesting. Okay. And also, there's a big book. Tell me about this book.
So a neat, a fun thing about this family, they had the first piano. Their mother, Miss Fanny, had the first piano in Murfreesboro, which is really neat to bring music to this town. And, lots of people had books and collections of books, but to bring that music. So I can imagine, and thinking back of, having parties and things at their home, and that was probably the center of a lot of the entertainment of playing.
Live music.
And so we are very fortunate to have the girls' music book, and it's neat to see in the front, it says Mary Franny Murfree, and then at the top is a picture of an American flag that, I don't know what age, but they would have drawn, and I just thought that was really neat to kind of see their creative. And then it has an address in here, and then handwritten, the index to the different pieces. And so it's just a beautiful book of different songs and music that, as you can imagine, they played songs for guests that would come and visit their home.
And extensive, rather than having sheet music, it was all in a book form.
Yeah.
How special that you still have that.
And how they were learning to play music, lots of handwriting throughout, which is neat to see.
And you also have some of their china.
We do. So this was part of Mary Noailles' collection. This is hand-painted china that was produced right outside of France. So very popular for that time period to have some hand-painted pieces. So we were fortunate that we had a cousin of ours that collected a lot of the family's things and passed them down to us when he passed away. So they're just beautiful, just the detail. And if you can imagine someone, sitting there and spending time and doing the
hand-painted, in other words. Okay, Jenna, I know one of the things she was especially known for was the fact that she wrote the stories in the dialect of the people, the mountain people. And you have a selection from one of her books there. If you'd read it to us,
Sure.
I think that'd be special.
I will attempt. So here's one that I think is kind of neat to be able to hear a little bit of that. Yonder Is your daddy as empty as a gourd? I'll be bound. Hurry ain't to get supper, child. Time's a wastin'. Time's a wastin'.
Oh, gosh.
So I think that's just so fun to kind of, see a little bit of her personality, but also when they would go to Beersheba Springs, kind of the people they were around and get some of that inspiration. So.
For more information about our project, Leading Ladies of Rutherford County History, visit our website, leadingladiesrutherford.com. Or if you have a story of someone from the past who inspired you, you can share it on our website. For more information about the Rutherford Arts Alliance and what we're doing to promote arts, culture, and heritage, visit rutherfordartsalliance.org. And thank you for watching.